This is really the first podcast, I'm doing after January, 10, 11 months in. I give all my time to Zerodha because I still feel there are many problems to be solved for. To be honest, I had thought it's maybe the end of me leading Zerodha.
Zerodha Media Network. If you had the opportunity, right, to go back and write yourself a letter to the day you were starting Zerodha in 2010, what would you tell yourself?
I would say just enjoy, I guess, because there was no transparency in the market.
One of the other things that you also say is like sleep on time, prioritize your health.
No, I mean, in terms of, I would say sleep well, because it's incredible how important sleep is to your body. And compromising on sleep, knowing what I know today, was probably the dumbest thing to have done. In the short term, when you grow, you can never really be aligned properly with the customer. And we have been questioning, grow at what cost? To grow fast, you probably need to advertise and market and etc. And because you have spent money on advertising marketing, now you have a CAC that you have to justify. I think in today's world, if a company survives long enough, the product will eventually turn out to be bad.
Now, in today's world, there is so much out there. Right? There is so much information, there is advice for almost everything. Do you think that's a pro or a con for a founder starting today?
Yeah.
It's so easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard today.
Yeah.
Because...
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching.
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj. And today, I have a very special guest with me to celebrate the 100K on the podcast. Join me in welcoming Mr. Nithin Kamath, who's the founder and CEO of Zerodha, one of India's largest financial services company, financial tech companies, which he doesn't like being called. But I'm sure he needs no introduction. Thank you so much, Nithin, for joining me today.
Thanks. It's a pleasure being here.
I'm so glad. I've wanted to host you for a long time. Anybody in the startup ecosystem, I think, who's been around for a while will look up to your work and be largely inspired by it. So I'm glad that we can finally sit down for a chat and discuss all the unique ways in which you've built a business, and you've shown us a picture that is otherwise not popularized. The keeping the customer first, bootstrapped approach, spending long years. It's been 14 years since you started Zerodha. And I want to deep dive into all of that today. Where I might want to start is this year has been difficult for you in a different manner, right? Not in terms of business challenges, but in terms of personal challenges. I would love to understand from you that, you met with a stroke, which of course worried a lot of us in the ecosystem, but you've been very vocal about it. This was earlier in the year. What's changed since then? What was the impact of such a monumental thing in your life? If you can help us decode that, would be really helpful.
I mean, this is really the first podcast, I'm doing after January. So that's 10, 11 months in. And going into January earlier this year, I was probably the fittest I was, right? So, and the thing was, the incident that led me to get a stroke, I mean, it could have been anything. I probably contracted COVID around that time. It was, my dad had passed away. And so, yeah, there were a bunch of things at the same time. And it hit, and the first 1 or 2 months, I wasn't sure because I really couldn't, there's nothing. It was just, I was sitting in the house and figuring out why did this happen and why me? And but by 3 months in, I was back at work, and now I'm doing this. So I guess 1 year was learning of sorts. So.
Yeah. Can you double click a bit on what those 2 months in isolation do to you? Like, what were some monumental life things that you learned during that phase?
I see, the thing is, I was not alone. Right? As in,
of course, you had family around you.
Yeah, Nikhil was around, my wife was around, my mom was around. So they were there 24/7 with me. What was I going through? I was really blank, because I just had my speech therapies. I had my I actually had 3 speech therapies a day. I was hoping to get better fast, So, but during that, the 1-2 months, the first 2 months, I had thought it's maybe the end of me leading Zerodha, as in terms of my work, etc. I thought, maybe it's where I call it a day, and I was not sad about it. It was just it just felt like it's natural, So yeah, so it was a tough year, but I guess I'll have to say that I'm a better human than I was before, after going through this year.
I'm glad you can say that out with a smile, and I can only imagine the depth of what that much must have meant. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
But it's been quite a while since you started the company, and I don't think people put it in as much perspective. While we all celebrate the success of Zerodha a lot, and rightly so, I would love to maybe, if you had the opportunity, right, to go back and write yourself a letter to the day you were starting Zerodha in 2010, knowing what you know today, what would you tell yourself?
I would say, just enjoy, I guess, because I sometimes I think, what would I change if I could go back in time? And there isn't
Anything,
right? Anything in life, just so many happenstances, so many lucky moments, so many right people I met, and it all led to where we are today. And any one of them could have meant not happening, could have meant that us being not here. So I there isn't anything I would change as such.
Got it. But is there any wisdom that knowing at the very start would have made you wiser than you were, that could have maybe expedited the journey, or made it grander, or made it even more fulfilling?
Yeah, the first 3-4 years, we were building on top of a vendor, right?
Before Kailash came and joined the team.
So, but then, my answer would have been, I should have spent time and energy before Kailash, but then Kailash shouldn't happen. And
Got
so it's like that. So it's nothing really that could have changed. So,
Fair. No, that's super interesting to hear. Maybe you mentioned luck a lot, and this is a common pattern across all of your previous conversations as well, that you attribute a lot of what happened to timing, luck, running into Kailash while walking down the street and saying hello to somebody. Talk to us about how people can put themselves into such situations. I understand that some luck is, of course, just the universe, but then there is also serendipity, or fancy words around how to manufacture luck. Have you ever given it a thought as to how do you keep repeatedly getting lucky?
So the thing is, before Zerodha happened, I had spent 12 years in the same business, right? So when people talk about Zerodha as a today as whatever valuation and etc. So it probably took us 15-17 years to get lucky. Right. So, and that's the thing with luck, right? As in, some people get lucky first year, some people take 17 years to get lucky. So you can't really game luck, So the best you can do, I think, is, when I look back, is how do you improve the odds of getting lucky? One is you do something that you're passionate about. Because you're passionate about things, you attract the right kind of people. Two is, it sounds cliched, but maybe just being like a decent human being, right? And you tend to attract the right kind of people then, because that's that's about it, and everything else is really luck. The market cycle in India from 2015 onwards has just been crazy. As in, I sometimes wonder who are these people who are opening accounts with us, every month, and if there are 400,000 accounts open, I wonder why they're opening so many accounts. As in,
Yeah.
and it's just not us. As in, it's a bunch of competitors, right? Grow, Upstocks, Angel, all of them are simultaneously getting bigger,
Yeah.
and yeah, in a market cycle like that, we got to benefit because we were at the right place at the right time. So it's that. I mean, now so many of my friends and younger people in the family ask me, how do you get lucky? As in, I don't really have an answer. So
Fair.
yeah.
Yeah, no, but can I now say that, okay, if I were to predict the next 20 years and get macros right, and then maybe sit at the center of that macro,
Right.
and wait long enough, will that be the formula for luck? Like, could
Yeah.
you have looked at 2010 and be like, okay, fundamentally, public market penetration for Indian investors will increase.
Yeah.
We should do this.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, for you it was
because-
far more organic in nature.
Yeah, I mean,
you were in the business, it felt natural.
Yeah, and when we first started, I mean, my best case scenario was 100,000 customers, right? As in, we had 300,000 customers a month now. When I first made a business plan, really, it had 100,000 customers.
That's the
And
best case scenario.
Yeah.
And today, what? There are 60, 70 lakh active.
I mean, active is, 70 to 80 lakh active
Wow.
customers. So, yeah, it's kind of incredible how much we've grown, but it's possible that someone else could have thought about it.
Yeah.
Someone is saying that the penetration in the market is quite less and it can grow,
Yeah.
but I don't think anyone really thought that through, because if they had thought through, you probably would have had multiple Zerodhas.
Yeah,
so-
precisely. And it's always easier to sound smarter in hindsight,
Yeah,
I suppose. No, but that's interesting. Let's maybe talk about long-term thinking, which is easier said than done again, right?
Right.
For somebody, for like you've done it for 25 years, you can claim it. How do you think more youngsters who want to devote time and energy to something, and I'm probably stereotyping, but we have this tendency to move from one thing to the other, not being satisfied with one subject or one passion, right? And we keep doubling down on other things. What do you suggest is the best way to keep long-term thinking, compounding in mind when pursuing things?
I would not say that trying out many things is really bad.
Okay.
Right? Because the idea is you try out many things, you improve the odds of finding the thing that you love to do.
Precisely.
Right? So but how do you know
When to
is
stop.
Yeah, when to stop? That's a decision people have to take. As in, at some point you have to take some risk and kind of stick to it. And in terms of trends, like for example, what are we doing today as in just as Zerodha? We are hoping, I think broking has peaked.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think the number of users, I mean, I would actually go on to bet that will probably degrow and then grow as an industry
Yeah.
for the next 1 to 3 years, right?
Sure.
Because how do we
Keep growing.
keep growing now? So that our idea was we invest in a bunch of startups. Again, in the spaces which we can relate to, around fintech, because it's an extension of us, around climate, because that sometime in the future people are going to take climate change seriously.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't know if you're too early in the race, but at some point it's going to happen, right?
It's a fundamental truth.
Yeah, as in some point, people in Delhi will go, something has to be done, right? So we're investing in that, and on health, right? As in, again, health is something that eventually someone, some point of time, has to be solving for some problems, right? So these are the 3 problems that we are solving for. We are attempting to solve for with the partners we have, and we are taking bets around that. Now, I don't know when will this actually come true, right? As in, it could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, 15 years, who knows, right? And that's why we're structured as a perennial fund, right? So we're gonna tell the startups that we are partnering with that, we are by your side and etc. So, coming back to your question now, the thing is, I don't know which one of these things might work, right? And but the idea,
you stick around for a long time.
Yeah. And today it doesn't seem like it's playing out. None of the spaces which I told, fintech, of course, it's playing out, but health and climate are not something that people are giving enough, serious weight to. But the gut says
they will.
Sometime in the future.
And 10 years later, the headlines will be overnight success, but you would have been working on it for a decade and more.
Yeah. And do you want to execute? Do you want to be in the job of execution? I don't know. Still, we haven't found a problem that we have an answer to, which is compelling enough for us to execute ourselves.
Full time.
Yeah. But if we come across something, potentially we will.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because that was one of my questions. As somebody who's 44, 45, you definitely, and hopefully many healthy years ahead of you, you focus on health a ton. There's a ton of, like, let's say 2-3 decades ahead of you of great work, right? Which means that there will perhaps be a second innings, for the lack of a better framing, right? Let's say beyond Zerodha. Of course, Rainmatter Foundation continues to invest. But in these years, do you have a mental model which is more structured than, like, all of these spaces you're passionate about?
Right.
But how do you decide to spend time, energy, and resource? Because practically you have availability and abundance of all.
Right.
What is the mental model for you to say that this is what governs or like commands my time, and it is worthy of my time and energy?
Okay, Zerodha, I give all my time to Zerodha.
Sure. As
in most of my time, because I still feel there are many problems to be solved for, right, in the broking space. So that's something that I give a lot of time to. Around 10-15% of the time of mine goes into all the startups that we invest.
Sure.
Now, when we are investing in the startups, the objective is not really to do it to maximize profits, right? The objective is, are they the right set of founders? Are they the type who will stick around? And are they the type, in a sense, you're trying to figure out people who might potentially get lucky, right? And just make sure that you're around them.
Sure.
And that's what we are doing through the time. Around 5% of my time I give to Rainmatter Foundation. Foundation is through which we support the non-profits.
The philanthropy
side.
Investing is different.
Got
it.
In a sense, we think it's the same, because in India, to be honest, anywhere in the world, the really large problems can be solved only by the government, right? But you need the social sector experimenting and proving, kind of creating MVPs of sorts.
Yeah.
And
they prove the thesis enough to govern government action.
Yeah, that's a plan. That's that's something that we are completely committed to as well. I give very little time today, but outside this, I'm either in the office or in the house. So there isn't
Right.
much to select.
Got it. Out of all the things that you've achieved with Zerodha, which is wealth creation for team members, financial literacy for millions of people in the country through Varsity, Rainmatter Foundation, which fuels other difficult, challenging problem statements in great people. What is the most fulfilling thing if you had to select one out of all of the different things that you've gone on to achieve?
Achievement, it's
And it's a strong word for especially a humble personality like yourself.
No, I mean, yeah, it isn't. But I really get kick out of when people say they are doing better because of us, in terms of their money choices. In terms of where they decide to invest, etc. It could be anything. It could be Kite, it could be Coin, it could be Varsity, it could be 01. It doesn't really matter. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm doing better because of you," it feels really good. So
Got it. That's perfectly put. In terms of just, you also had the pleasure of noticing this major shift in consumer behavior of investing, right?
Yeah.
What is it that you've seen change, right? Like, can you paint us a picture of, okay, these were the number of active users, let's say back in 2010, and this is the state of perhaps public market investing today.
No, I mean, see, the thing is, until 2014, 2015, actually, if you look at the last bull market, which is, the 2007 bull market, most people who entered the markets were older, right? As in, they were 30 plus, and mostly the average age would have been 40, 45, that would have been like the average age of the people. Now the average age of the people is 27. So you automatically have a much larger audience because you're kind of targeting the younger group. In terms of active customers, I would say there would not have been more than 10 lakh people actively in the markets in 2010.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's
and that's about 10 crore today?
No. Active customers is maybe around 3 crores. Oh, active customers. Okay, so active people are people who trade actively in the markets once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe 10-15 lakh was the number of people back in 2010. But 2010 was also
the bad year.
Yeah, like a bad year. Coming back on 2007 and 2008, the markets fell quite a bit, and then 2010 was really, when people look back, worst times to start broking business when we started off. But in hindsight, it kind of worked out very well for us. So.
And has the ratio of retail investors to active traders also changed drastically? Because you've gone on record to say that I think 3% of the trading volume gets made up by 90% of the investors, whereas 97% make the majority share of the trading volume, which we don't realize, as 10% of the customers make a majority share of the trading volume. How has that changed over the years?
No, that's
pretty much the same.
That's pretty much the same, because the number of the thing in the markets, what people don't realize is most people they think the market is buying stock, holding it for a few days and selling it, and that's really nothing. It's maybe 5% of the market, and 95% of the business is really speculative in nature. And so that ratio is kind of remained the same. So.
Got it. No, that's super helpful. Do you also think that because so many of these youngsters, and this happened in the US as well, right? Like when new age stocks kept going IPO, like a Facebook, Spotify, all of these, Shopify, people who were using these stocks, consumers, also became investors. Right. We're seeing a splurge of course, Indian startups with Zomato, etc., doing so well now in the public markets. Do you think there's a direct correlation of sorts of new age investors coming to the markets and investing, these consumer companies going public, and thus a correlation to success? What is your thought on that?
I don't think that's really happening in India yet.
Okay.
So
we are far away from that.
We are far, because I don't think consumers are looking at saying I use Swiggy a lot, so I should buy Swiggy, or I use Zomato a lot. I mean, it isn't really happening,
Right.
because it's probably because it's not aspiring enough, right? As
Yeah.
in, the brands are not aspiring enough yet for people to be owning it, So, but that said, India is, Zomato is what, 2-3 year olds company, listed company. So maybe these companies should spend 5 years, 10 years, and then you'll get a momentum. So in the US, like Facebook was 2011, 2012,
12.
yeah, 2012. So it's got a lot more legacy of sorts, and
Fair.
so consumer businesses in India, people, I don't think are really. I mean, they might apply in the IPO, etc. IPO when it happens,
Because there's buzz.
yeah, ASBA and etc. At that time,
Maybe.
maybe the momentum, etc. will play out. But I don't think anyone, retail is really buying it just because they're using the product.
Got it. Yeah, that consciousness is not accurate
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Fair enough. But do you also have a thought process on the general IPO scenario? Because there are so many conflicting takes in the market, where there's one side, of course, which says that tech stocks are overinflated in terms of valuation. They are getting a premium for no legitimate reason. Whereas, of course, some of these stocks are also doing well. Many companies are planning to go IPO,
Right.
which is great for the private markets in India.
Right.
How have you seen that progression?
I mean, I don't want to maybe get
Sound-
caught saying,
Okay, fair.
say anything that might come across
As pessimistic.
pessimistic of sorts, because, yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll
Maybe
maybe
fair
excuse
enough.
this.
No, I was just curious because there are so many. You've seen the ecosystem evolve,
Right.
and you've seen so many new age IPOs. And you must be seeing this through 2012, 13, 14 as well.
Right.
So I was just curious from that lens. But maybe let's go back to the business. One of the things that you've always maintained is doing right by the customer, and you have shown that by saying that we never push the customer to trade further, which in your business can be a thing to pursue volume. Talk to us about when was this consciousness very clear?
Right.
Because it feels like one of those things which is difficult to practice, but necessary. So if you can walk us through your entire analogy here with maybe some contextual examples, that would be really helpful.
No, I mean, from the day Zerodha started, actually, from the day I started broking, I was, before Zerodha, I was sub-broker.
Yeah.
The day business, when I took the other side of the trader, I mean, I felt that I'm kind of a person who's doing business on the other side too, right? So from day one, as in the first thing that we did as a business was, there was no transparency in the market at that point of time. 2010 brokers were, and the first disruptive thing that we did was put out a brokerage calculator.
Yeah.
Right, as in it sounded very simple, but none of the competitors could do it. They could not do it because no one, I mean, every broker had different pricing, etc., to the customers, and they would make money off customers who are unaware of it. The guys who would bargain, they would get a better pricing, whatever. So that the brokerage calculator, the act of putting the calculator was quite simple.
Yeah.
But generally the impact of it was quite
was
big.
quite large. Yeah. The community drove a lot of word of mouth, and then many other things, right? Like the flat fee to get started, the 20 rupee.
Yeah.
Everything was quite forward looking.
Yeah, absolutely. As in, and then I started answering on a lot of online forums, as Zerodha, and again something that none of the competitors could do, because you could go answer on a neutral platform because you had nothing to hide, right? Because you were kind of completely transparent. That also gave us edge. throughout the journey, as in there are multiple things. Like for example, now um, the last 3 to 6 months, the business has seen a plateau of sorts.
Okay.
Not just for us, for the industry.
For the industry.
And if you now look at our competitors who are charging a flat fee,
Yeah.
now
They are
you
doing
can
other
see,
things.
you can see
Lending.
all this. No, not lending, not just pushing people to borrow to buy stocks when they don't need to. Just in terms of their pricing itself, right? Now it's not um, like say free brokerage. Okay, so the bunch of them are free, but they are not free anymore. Like bunch of them for MTF trades, this margin, the loan, which you borrow and you buy. People, the pricing on that is somehow very different to pricing on the normal trades. So all of that started happening. So it's like when you're building a business for money, you tend to do all those things. And also I guess it's also got to do with the with having investors etc. on board, because then you are always under the pressure of showing growth, right? And that is something. I mean, we are lucky to be in a place where we don't have to do that. Yeah.
No, that's something that is a very deeper lens. Let's maybe double click on that. One of the things that you say, and I was observing through other conversations, is that investor incentives clash with customer incentives, because the investor wants short-term growth and they want growth at all costs, and that may not be necessary for the customer, right? In your case, like driving to make more trades is predatory behavior that you don't want to do as a company that is not serving the customer well, but maybe serving the investor well. However, the contra argument is also that maybe investors only make money if the company makes money, and the company only makes money when the investors are fulfilled and they're happy. So how do you think about these things?
So the thing is, one of the reasons why we are chosen to remain private is also there's this company called Patagonia. Right. And Yuan Shenard, the CEO, has a bunch of books written, and it really comes down to that. I think any company in today's capitalistic world, if they were to list on exchange or if they were to raise a lot of money, will incentivize short-term growth over long-term growth, right? And when you incentivize short-term growth, short-term as in 1, 2, 3 years, as in that's short-term, right? As in long-term is 10, 15 years or whatever. So in the short term, when you grow, you can never really be aligned properly with the customer. Any business, be it the food delivery. I mean, I used to love, the food. I mean, I don't want to name them, but the food ordering apps. But now every time they're asking, every click is
extra money.
Yeah, as in not money, as in you subscribe to this, you do this. It's just spoil the experience, right? Now, but are they forced to do it? They are, right?
Because they have to show revenue growth.
Yeah, and probably some people are clicking and subscribing and whatever, right? So it's the same thing, it's a problem of today's capitalism, I guess, because it's just it's growing at any cost is really what's the priority, and we have been questioning that, as in we have been questioning grow at what cost, and like even for example, the active customer count, we are number 2 or number 3 or whatever in that list, and the thing was, do you get pressured by that, and then you want to grow really fast, and to grow fast you probably need to advertise and market and etc. And then because you have spent money on advertising marketing, now you have a CAC that you have to justify, and then you then forced to, every customer you acquire, you're forced to recover the CAC. That means you're forced to peddle some shit to him. So it's a big challenge.
It's fundamentally broken.
I think in today's world, if a company survives long enough, the product will eventually turn out to be bad, right? So be it Google, be it Facebook, be it whatever company in the world you take, the products turn out to be bad, and it keeps getting worse. Time probably Facebook not that much because they found this whole marketing thing, but Google, for example, it's ridiculous. As in, anytime I search, the first 5 searches are
sponsored.
Yeah, as in, what's the point of
Google
anyways. Searching anyways? So
they're not ranking anyway. They're just taking money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Was there any threshold after which you realized that chasing money was not the primary concern of the company, or was it always like that? Because I'm guessing there were points in time where it felt like, or maybe survival was a question, or extracting more money was just the need of the hour. How did you resist that temptation?
No, see, the thing is, we are capitalistic.
Yeah.
Okay, as
Of
nature,
course,
right?
yes.
As in, I don't want to prioritize short-term growth over long-term growth, right? That's all. I mean, that's a basic fundamental philosophy. So when I look at a customer, I want to be with him for his lifetime and not really for 3 years. Because I know some of my competitors will say, I spent 2,500 rupees acquiring this customer. I need to make 2,500 rupees fast.
The first year, and then extract more juice out of the customer.
Yeah. So I don't, we don't think like that. We are thinking, okay, this customer is with us for life. We need to make sure he does well. And is it smart? Are we being kind of foolish? I think it's smart.
It's
right?
smart. Yeah.
Because if you give enough time and if you keep doing the right things, why would a customer choose something else?
Yeah.
And so I mean,
it's actually self-serving in many ways because you're in it for the long run.
Right.
So you can serve the customer for his or her lifetime as opposed to for a short duration.
Yeah, I mean, my challenge, when I spoke to you about this year, right? The 2-3 months that I was sitting in the house, I thought my journey with Zerodha was done, and at that time I was thinking, would the philosophy with which
You
I started and we run the business, is that gonna play? Is the next generation of the leaders are sticking to it or not? Right? That was my question. And from the time I come back, the only thing I'm doing now is spending time ensuring that seeps through, right? The philosophy with which we run the business and why we run the business and etc. has to kind of seep through. And also the reason why we haven't hired anyone from any broking competitor, because everyone who's worked with a peer of ours comes with the baggage, right? And
of predatory practices, etc., that you don't stand for.
Yeah, and you can mold him, you can change him, everything, but
still not be your DNA.
Yeah. So it's a big challenge on how do we ensure that the next generation of leaders continue with the same philosophy. I mean, the same challenge with Kailash, who heads a tech, and same challenge with me running the business. How how do we ensure that the next bunch of people who come from within Zerodha are really meant, are doing what the way we are supposed to.
Yeah. What's the answer?
I don't know. I mean, the answer, I have a bunch of groups, and I'm waiting for people to show up and answer. I kind of also, we didn't hire too much. So a lot of people from within the org, until 2020, people who join a support team, for example, and the good ones would emerge.
Yeah.
Right. So, but after COVID, everything with work from home, etc., that had become stagnant, right? As in, how do you now discover who is a good person, right? And from last year, last January, February, we decided to come work from home, work from office, and I mean, not the entire team, but at least the tech team and the Z team, as we call it, and the process teams, and so I mean, investing a lot more time and effort in behind that. So.
Got it. No, you've always maintained how crucial the people aspect of the business has been. You've, as a company also, I think you maintained that in 2019 you were with 2 million customers, the same amount of people as you are right now with about 70, 80 sort of lakh people, which is 1100. I think that's the amount that you maintain, because you've not grown the org linearly with the growth of the business. What are the learnings in terms of just, I mean, you make it sound simple in the sense that people retain you, give them a homely experience. You don't like corrupt their minds with like add on salaries. You make expectations clear. I've heard that, but how do you practice that over like 10, 15 years?
I don't know. This is a thing, again, something that I was thinking for this 2-3 months in this year. Generally, the last 14-15 years has been a bull market for India. Right.
So also the sentiment is positive.
Yeah. So what happens when it is not? As in, that's one of the reasons. We went so easy. So I mean, we didn't hire too much because we didn't want to hire people and then have to fire people. Right. We didn't want to do that. And yeah, but I wonder now, how would the sentiment be if the business
wasn't growing as fast,
or it went through tough times? As in, would it have been that as easy as I make it sounded to be?
Yeah,
maybe not. Right?
Do you prepare for a rainy day now then?
Yeah, I mean, we have 5 years runway, as in complete at every point of time. In liquid cash, as in fixed deposits, whatever. That's really the runway, and so runway is really the is like the preparation, and so I kind of also keep communicating it to the team about this, the fact that we've run up quite a lot as a business, and maybe there is a correction. Somewhere's gonna happen, and I've been calling a correction in the.
Yeah, you've been very vocal about it publicly as well.
But then the correction is not coming, so.
Yeah, we'll wait for it.
But internally as well, not just publicly, as in even internally, I've been. All my communication, if you look at it, it will feel like we are in a bear market of sorts. So but the idea is you better be prepared for the worst than
be sorry then.
Yeah. So I mean, if like they say, if you're prepared for the worst, then everything else.
You're always taken care of. That's pretty wise. In terms of just human learnings about people, incentives, how people stick together. Are there any distinct learnings from just a selection and retention point of view? Because you've ended up like you maintain that retention's really high within the team. Leaders are from within the org. What has that been like? If you had to, because I think continually the challenge I hear from many founders on the other side is that hiring, recruiting, firing is always such a major challenge, and it remains to be for most people.
Right.
What is your learning on that front? Just
I know.
identification.
I don't know if it's it's something that people can learn from, but but what I can tell you what has worked for us, and it's been in terms of hiring for tech, for example. Kailash is completely anal about hiring. You hire 3 people in a year, he'll be like, oh, we hired too much, and so he's got his own like he and the team had their own philosophies of hiring.
Sure.
In terms of the broader team, everyone really enters the business doing support work, right? And everyone grows from there.
Sure.
And that's how
From scratch.
Like everyone has done support job for at least 3 months, right? And then I mean, now that when you have a target that I want to grow in the next 6 months or 1 year, can you do that? You cannot, right?
Because you're looking at them as short-term resource. You need to get them to work instantly.
Yeah. So we don't. I mean, that's the whole point. As in, the whole philosophy is just not in how we build the business for the customer, but it's also internally, as in how we run it as a business. And when people join, if they've grown within the org, then and they're finding challenging things, and retaining good people is not very hard. The last 4, 5, 6 years, the business has made some money also. So there's wealth to be distributed. So that always helps.
That of course helps retention as well. Let's get to maybe the marketing side, right? You've always maintained that, hey, we don't want to inorganically acquire a customer. We want to do this by word of mouth, by providing a great experience to the existing customers. In fact, if at all you're a negative CAC business, right? Because everybody who signs up on the platform pays you a certain amount of fees, 200 rupees. Now, you've also with Nikhil doing the podcast, with Zerodha doing multiple media initiatives, it seems to be the case that, okay, we see more of the brand that is visible in front of the eyes. What is the internal thought, and how has your thinking around marketing, especially in a competitive environment, changed? Because I can imagine that, pre-2016, when there was no tech-led brokerage, you were basically the only one. But since then, with VC dollars in competitors who are, of course, fueling a lot of the market with money, how do you keep up with that? And what is the marketing strategy now?
In 2020, when the COVID happened, when we went to work from home, we lost out on a year and a half of time. As in, that year and a half, 2 years between 2020 to 2022, we were probably not doing enough, because for us it was just managing. How do you manage the growth in the business, right?
Because there was a market tailwind anyway.
Anyways, but at that point, maybe our competitors did a bunch of right things. Our video strategy was nothing. I think 2 years back, we got one of these brand consultants, I think first time ever, to do like a brand consultancy, like a gig for us. And he said, like, you don't really stand for a brand that people can associate with.
The diagnosis was you're not doing well.
You're not doing well, so, given all the competition that was spending on IPL and all of that, it was crazy. As in, so that's when Nikhil, podcast or whatever we guys are doing, in a way is our marketing strategy, right? Which is to go out and help people, understand something better, and you're really not doing it with that expectation, but
That will convert.
it'll convert. But you know that the
And
objective
net
is that-
positive work will
Yeah.
lead to something positive.
yeah. So that's the overall objective.
Yeah.
And even I on social media I was not active until 2019.
Oh, that's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it is nothing. As in my Twitter and all is only from 2019 onwards.
Oh.
It was because until 2018, 17, 18, 19, most of the work we were doing was under Zerodha itself. Like whatever
The
we had-
blogs, the
Yeah.
varsity was under Zerodha.
Yeah, and if I had to share something as Zerodha, I would get hits as Zerodha. Why would it bother me that
Yeah.
I have to have personal handle? And somewhere around that time, I think the social media, they started muting the reach of business accounts,
Oh yeah.
right? And that's
Yeah.
when,
Which is still the case.
it's just gotten even worse now.
Yeah.
But that's when we actually, all of us, we all personally got active in terms of tweeting or
Just
or
presence.
sharing on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
etc. So, but the problem with this, the entire marketing strategy of ours is it's only addressing the English speaking audience, right? Like everything that we are doing is English speaking
English.
audience, and the Hindi speaking audience, I don't know how to reach them, right? As in we're trying out a bunch of things now, but
Maybe a Zerodha varsity in Hindi.
no, there is, but there's not enough traction in that,
Got it.
right? So
More needs to be done for that audience.
that audience, and most of the customers who have come in over the last 2-3 years, in terms of absolute numbers, not in terms of AUM, are from UP, for example, are from Bihar, are from Rajasthan,
Yeah.
and I there's this thing that's running always in my head saying, what do I do
With that audience.
to get that audience? So
That's actually fascinating. Are you at liberty to share, if I had to ask you, like, what's the broad customer persona or like geographical spread, maybe split in terms of gender as well?
Right.
What would that look like for Zerodha?
No, gender, it's the male of the house managing it. Even if it's it's someone's mom, someone's sister, someone's wife. So it's majorly men.
Would it be 90-10?
I would say 95-5.
Okay.
Right, and in terms of
And these are traders or all users?
everyone,
All
users. Investors, at least traders. A woman trader.
Are fewer, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
If anything,
if
yeah.
anything, so
Will this change? Is this concerning, right, for an economy?
for India as a whole, it's not just in terms of demat account, in terms of
Just-
labor participation also,
Yeah.
right?
I think you've written about this as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like just women labor participation,
Yeah.
etc. is also.
Yeah, so it's a big, it's a mega concern. How do we get women to think more about money is something that we as a country have to think quite a bit. So in terms of
So that's the gender split.
Gender.
Geography wise?
Geography-wise, most of our customers are South India, Maharashtra, and then Gujarat, Calcutta, West Bengal, and then NCR. So
Okay, NCR's behind.
yeah. So in a way, this
Which is
UP
a very
and all.
consumption-driven economy,
Yeah.
but not investing as much.
Yeah. In terms of UP is a country in its own, right? As in,
Yeah, of course.
25 crore Indians.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous that that's so many Indians are there in one state in this country.
Yeah.
And
Is the Gujarat belt very evident as well?
yeah, Gujarat has always been active
Because
yeah.
it's the
It's
financial
a
hub of
financial,
sorts.
yeah. So yeah, but generally I feel we can do a lot more in terms of Hindi and kind of, it
The
should
UP.
extend UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. All those areas
That needs to be worked.
are areas we are not doing well. It doesn't mean that AUM wise we're doing bad, because AUM still kind of lies in the metros and all of that.
Sure.
In terms of number of users, number of customers,
There's more depth to be extracted.
yeah, and I mean, another way to look at this is, if you don't have money and you're coming to the markets because you're greedy, how many?
You will churn very fast.
Absolutely. So I mean, that's the other way of looking at it. So we need to see. I think if we spend some 2-3 years, we'll get to know how this audience behaves. This crowd from this smaller tier 2, tier 3, towns, etc. behave.
One more opportunistic, especially in this cycle.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I want to double click on your persona online. It does feel like you have a very distinct voice and you are able to claim things and make, futuristic predictions also from a very unique vantage point. Of course, one part is that you've earned that, freedom. You're not answerable to anybody, so you're very free. But how much of this is conscious versus, let's say, necessary? Like, is it all just naturally you? What's your mental model to put stuff out there?
In a way, if I was not running Zerodha, would I be on social media? Maybe not.
Okay.
So just being on social media, it's, in a way, I think I'm obligated to say it, because I have the freedom to say it. Someone, just the luck, the freedom, and everything that's played along with us in this journey has given me an opportunity to kind of say something that people listen to. And you see, most of my posts are around that, are stuff which probably will make you feel smarter than, or smarter, or whatever, in terms of your understanding of a subject, etc., improves because of what I say. And I'm very, in terms of what I say also, I don't just say it out.
You practice it.
I mean, I say it to myself. I let it settle. I will then think about it. Then I'll bounce out off to a bunch of friends, a bunch of the colleagues. And one colleague he's got the complete right to say no to everything I say.
Okay.
and if it kind of makes...
He has veto.
Yeah, it's Bhuvan. Bhuvan has complete veto rights. And then, so if he says, okay, finally, it kind of makes up. So it's like, it's... but I think... Personally, I think social media is doing more harm than good. So
You're conflicted there.
Yeah. So if I personally had to be there, I would probably not be there. Right? Because,
interesting.
So it's just that as a CEO of Zerodha, I think I need to be there. So
yeah, fair. Nithin, the freedom aspect, right? It just feels like you value it a lot. The fact that you can do what's right by the customer, think long term, not be driven by external investors. A lot of your ideology is being very personal to you and in practice. Talk to us about what freedom means to you when you recognize the privilege of freedom. It just feels like a very fascinating subject that not a lot of people may grasp fully.
I mean, so the reason behind freedom is basically, I would say, it's got to do with the money, right? Like the best outcome of making
enough
money has been freedom, right? Because for me, I had a number in my mind when I started the journey.
What is it?
It was 5 crores. It was 5 crores, and
oh wow,
it was like a 5 crores. At the end of 5 crores, I would buy a car. I would own a shack on Goa beach, and that was 2001. But a few zeros after five, and
Yeah, 23 years later, 5,000 crore profit.
no, I mean 5,000 crores is nothing, but I mean
In
5,000
terms-
crores
is not yours, I know.
I mean it's just a luck of draw, as in, but for me, I think around 2016, 17, I kind of hit that number where I thought,
This was it.
this is enough. As in, I mean, there's a study, right? Where people in the US did a study saying how much money is optimal, right? Where too much, where the US number of $50 million.
Got
right?
it. 400 crores.
Yeah, and I think if someone had to put a gun against my head and say what's the number in India, that should get someone be in a comfortable, I mean, a wealthy position, but a comfortable and not worry for life. I would say 100 crores, right? And once I was around that number, there was this freedom, right? So freedom to do a lot of things. Every investment that we do, in my head, it's almost like I think of it as write-off, right? I think if it's a write-off, would I still be investing? It's like that. So that way, investment that we do from Rainmatter or the grant that we do from the foundation almost seems the same, because you are essentially doing both with a sense of it not really without you receiving any capital of sorts. So it's I mean, it's probably the most beautiful thing in life to be mentally free, as in just to have the complete freedom. I mean, there are people who claim that they have freedom. You have sadhus, for example. Right? They claim to be
That's a
free.
different kind of freedom.
Yeah, but I have a family, and in case of sadhu, for example, he can't say he's got a family and he's free, right? And in my case, as in,
No, that's fair. I think this really helps. You hit a certain number after which I think studies have also shown that I think the utility of money after a point just falls. Like it doesn't maybe compound as much, right?
Right.
So that's wonderful to know. It shows in how you say things and live things as well. In terms of wealth concentration, this is something that you've been very vocal about as well. And I was looking up some studies and it said that 1% of the Indian population controls about 40% of India's wealth.
Right.
Now, this is, of course, a structural problem again. Do you think there is a systemic way to solve for it? You, of course, are solving for the wealth concentration problem in your case by, having a philanthropic organization, investing in others. But what's the otherwise solve? How do you look at wealth concentration as a problem statement?
So I typically keep telling this to everyone I meet who is wealthy, is that you have to do a lot more to give it away, right? Because you give your wealth to your next generation. It's not really a great thing to do, right? I mean, I personally think so. So I mean, firstly,
you practice what you preach,
right? And secondly, I think inheritance tax is required in this country, right? Because it's not fair for generations together to hold on to the wealth and then keep accruing on it. Every time a generation receives X amount of wealth, they need to give some tax out of that. And I think it's only fair for that to happen. But will it happen?
Questionable.
Questionable. So
maybe not as practical in the near term.
But sometime, directionally, India has to take this inheritance tax route some
Yeah.
point of time, and yeah,
It should happen sometime.
It should happen sometime.
Fair. As we conclude, I think I have a couple of final questions. One of the things is the philosophy in which you've led business at a time which was very different may not be true today. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, which is that, hey, Bootstrap may not work in a competitive market today. Not prioritizing growth may not be very competitively feasible today. How do you look at younger founders who are starting today, and what is your advice to them building a company? Because so much of your advice may not be the practical way to build a company today, just because market environment has changed. What do you think about that?
No, I mean that's the bigger problem today, which is the capitalism of today, is really not aligned right of sorts. So impossible for someone to build Zerodha starting today. I mean, including us, like including if all the right place, right thing happen, starting now, it's next to impossible to build Zerodha today. So I think the next best what a founder can do is to make sure the money he raises, he doesn't overpromise, right? Because when you overpromise, then you have to stick to that, that promise somehow, right? So if you have said you'll grow at say 100% year on year, you raise money, you have to grow at 100% year on year,
because you have an obligation.
Yeah. So I think founders will do well by under promising and over delivering than over promising, under delivering. As in, it's that's important. And the other thing which a founder can do is make sure he raises money from the right kind of investors, not really raise from someone who can give him the max money, right? Valuations, etc. You need people who are aligned with your vision, because as a founder, as in raising money is a glorified loan, right? As in, because raising money won't make you money. I mean, building the business will make you money, and you need to make sure that you got the right kind of investors along for the journey. So yeah, I think these three things probably, I would say.
Got it. One of the other things that you also say is like, don't work beyond a certain point in the day because you have to manage your team. Don't hustle, and hustle culture shouldn't be glorified. Sleep on time, prioritize your health. In your growing up years, were you able to practice the same?
No.
And do you think somebody who's work in progress, right? Like I was thinking to myself that he has a 26-year-old who looks up to Nithin Kamath and wants to get there. I don't relate to this advice right away. Maybe when I'm there, I can practice it. How do you think people who are work in progress, right? Like they're still figuring out their journey, still getting to the point that you are at. How do you think they should look at life on these subjects?
No, I mean, in terms of, you asked me earlier, what would I go back and tell myself from 13 years back? I would say sleep well, because it's incredible how important sleep is to your body, and compromising on sleep, knowing what I know today was probably the dumbest thing to have done. Right? Probably I'd slept more, it have probably meant more in terms of outcomes, right? So, but yeah, it's a tricky question, So, in terms of,
do you think there's a threshold after which you get to a position where you can prioritize these things? Or
I don't think so. I don't think it's a threshold in terms of money, because there is, you never really have enough money in your life, right? That money is gonna get you
not even 100 crores.
I mean, most people, and I have reached that number, right? But most people who reach 100 crores, they want 1,000 crores, they want 1,000, they reach 1,000, they want 10,000 crores. There's no end to it, right? So yeah, in terms of what would I tell a 26-year-old? I mean, I would still advise that you should sleep well, but you probably have every right to ask me the question that you just did. Saying
Fair enough.
you didn't you can't you didn't practice what you preach, so you can't really tell me what to do. I'm 22. So I don't know the answer, but I know that sleeping 7-8 hours a day improves the outcome of the remaining 16 hours a day by significantly, right? And
so if we keep that in mind, maybe we'll backward practice what you're
no, I
preaching.
mean, it's also, the thing is, okay, throughout my life I played a sport, right? And I played a sport because when I was a kid, etc., I had wheezing asthma problem, and I had to play a sport. Just my cardio, it had to be up. But my diet was all over the place, right? I used to play a sport, but I used to be still fat because I used to eat whatever. So all of that is secondary, right? But the only thing I would say, just to make sure that try to get 7 to 8 hours sleep is super important in life. So.
Got it. Some of these mental models in your mind feel very evolved. Do you think as a CEO, how much time do you spend on active management versus developing things that will compound over a period of time? Like how much active time do you spend on reflection, figuring out these mental models, practicing them? Is there a framework, or is it all just
No,
figure it out on the go?
I mean, this is something that I've been thinking quite a bit over the last 3-4 years, that I need to give myself some time to sit and think, right? Because it's just, I'll tell you my day. My day, I wake up at 5 to 6:37. I'm working out. 7:30. I hold the guitar for a bit. Then 7:38, I get on the newspapers. 9:30, breakfast and etc. and getting to office, etc. Then in the office till 6:37. Then get home, spend some time with my son, with my wife, etc. and sleep. Where do you have time? I'm like, it's you need to have the time to be able to do this. So I've been thinking significantly about I mean, there's something that Nikhil does very well. He makes sure he gets time for himself, and that's probably because he's not married. So he can. But I typically think about a lot, and I listen to a podcast of these CEOs of
Brian Chesky's of the world.
Yeah, of everyone. As in, everyone's done so much thinking about the world, and I'm like, dude, I don't. I mean, I'm like a one-trick pony, as in, there's only broking business I can do. I can't do anything else because I haven't really thought about world as much as most people have. So that's been on my list of things to do. Is just get time off
for yourself
and just for yourself. Just to sit and think. So
yeah, well, that's lovely to hear. One other thing also was, you mentioned in passing that the first couple of years of Zerodha, you just didn't know any better, which meant that you stuck to the basics, kept on with the first principles. Now in today's world, there is so much out there, right? There is so much information, there is advice for almost everything. Do you think that's a pro or a con for a founder starting today?
Yeah,
it's so easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard today.
Yeah,
because the thing is, I don't know if I should say this, but I didn't really read any book. Okay, I mean, I read books, regarding trading, but no books as such. or no interviews and etc. When I started the business, so whatever was my idea of running the business was something that evolved from within, right? And I think about it as in, if there were as many videos, as many podcasts, as many things that I could listen to, which one will I pick up? So and would I have actually built the business this way? It's incredibly tough. I don't know what's the right answer to that. And I mean, at the end of
do
the
you
day,
consume information now actively?
no,
Content?
I mean, I'm addicted to it. I'm on my podcast every. I mean, I don't listen to too much of. I mean, I'm listening to a lot of history, and a lot of political stuff, but.
But you are consuming enough information and knowledge.
Like for example, acquired, right?
Acquired
I mean,
FM, yeah.
like,
It's a favorite.
I'm waiting for the podcast, and the last one was
Duolingo.
IKEA,
Oh, IKEA.
right? So as soon as IKEA came, it's like 1.5
You
2
have to
hours,
go.
and it's done. So it's like that. So there are this 10-15 podcasts that I follow that.
You have to hear.
But it's an addiction, because now you're listening to podcasts. It means you can't read as much books, right?
So you lose out on some kind of information and knowledge.
I mean, and there's just infinite number of I for a while I was listening to a lot of health, and it was just as in, how many people can you listen to who can say smart things? It's just incredible.
Infinite.
So
that's fair, I guess. Yeah. I mean, probably not the best advice on a podcast to say that there are too many podcasts, and probably that's going to bite me back. But no, I was still curious to understand, because as I was going through your previous interviews, it just felt like, hey, some things you just have to figure out for yourself.
Right.
Like, so nobody can solve it for you. No amount of knowledge externally can.
Right.
And maybe, of course, that's changing in a very dynamic, competitive environment. But yeah, I think it helps to have that perspective as well.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious to understand, Nithin, is also, I don't think there's been a very strong narrative around what things that you got wrong, right? And I'm sure there must have been multiple, right?
Yeah.
Because we, of course, celebrate, and rightly so, the right things, right? Which was like, hey, negative CAC business, bootstrapped, etc. Are there any things that you think in hindsight were, or just stories, anecdotes that, moves that didn't go your way?
No, I told you, as in the last.
Yeah, you mentioned the COVID bit.
The 22, that period, we were like sitting ducks in terms of a video strategy, because the whole world moved into consuming content only in video, and we didn't have nothing for those 2-3 years. And that was like a big mess. In terms of products, as in, you keep attempting, as in, like, the last thing I was super excited about was on our order form. On the there used to be a way for you to tag for the reason why you took the trade. Right? Like, say for example, it's a moving average crossover. That's why I bought this stock. So you could tag the trade as moving average.
Got it.
And then you can do a P&L of moving averages and kind of see how your tag played out. 1,000 people, 1,000 people tried it, and it is ridiculous because it was on our order form. It's finally we pulled the plug off, but then it's like
didn't go.
It didn't go. As in, the 1,000 things like this, which have flopped, in terms of idea, but you keep at it and you keep trying. Some things work, some things don't, and the odds of you getting it right is very, very, very little. Maybe 10 things you try, one will work out, right? As in, but then you need to try those 10 things.
Keep trying.
Yeah. So, so that's how it is. So.
Got it. No, that's fascinating to hear. In the Zerodha product journey itself, I'm sure there are so many ideas across the table. How do you look at prioritizing, and will this ever be more than a brokerage business?
I mean, if we could be a bank, right? That's one piece, right? If Zerodha could be a bank, we would have been, so because
That could still happen.
it could still happen, but not the way we want it to be, because in banking you can't be a single owner company like us, right? Banking will need
External
investors, and you need to list, for example. So you need to be 25-30%.
Directors, etc.
I mean, more than directors, it needs to be like one of those diverse holding companies, so the promoter can't be more than 25% after 5 years of the business, right? So that itself complicates the issue.
That's interesting. I mean, if I might interrupt, where do you draw the line between aspiration and freedom?
Right.
Like, do you separate and be like, okay, no, we prioritize freedom more than the aspiration?
When it comes to bank, that's a question we've been asking. So
because that is really high aspiration.
Yeah, because very high aspiration, very low freedom, and but that's a question we ask. Now, in terms of when we started the AMC, for example, we partnered with Small Case. It could have been us,
by yourself,
by ourselves.
But you chose to partner.
Yeah, because they have built the right kind of skill set, and then we could define the rules within which they'll work. For example, everything is passive only funds. So now if there's no choice between active and passive, and it's only passive only, then you automatically know that the AMC is always going to be like this. So we've defined that in our rules.
Foundation you set as per your...
So I mean, like that, in terms of insurance, for example, we have partnered with Ditto. Right? With Ditto, for example, the thing that I always we always catch up and we always talk about is in terms of how many claims come to how many are denied, right? Because in terms of health insurance, the thing is, one is selling health insurance, but the most important thing, the reason you're taking health insurance is not for that, right? As in, it's for your claims.
Correct.
Right?
If it's not getting verified when the claims are coming in, then it's no good.
Yeah. As in terms of how much of your claims were you able to fulfill? Yeah. Right. That's really what matters in the health insurance business. So it's like that. I mean, but
so you have a worldview to how fintech should look like, and with some of these things, you'll either build them out yourself, or you'll partner with somebody. Is that accurate?
Yep, absolutely.
Got it. Are there any other forward-looking things you can tell us in terms of things that you haven't done yet but would like to partner or build in the future?
I mean, anything that we think can be built, we found a partner already. So something we need, there's some idea that none of us thought about. I mean, we would not know about it.
Fair. Because you exhausted all options.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of fintech, I think we kind of exhausted, all options. So now really in the health and climate space, we have many options, and we are taking small bets, and the idea is we're waiting to take the really large bets, so in that space as well.
Got it. Can you share your worldview to how climate companies might look like 5 years down the line, or health companies might look like? What are fundamental truths that you believe in that the world has not yet agreed upon, but will do in the future?
Like, for example, in climate, like alternate to plastic.
That has to be there.
That has to be there. It's I think it's just a no-brainer for that not to happen. And will it happen in 5 years? Will it take 10 years?
You don't know.
You don't know.
But it will.
For example, like solar is already known in climate, or in some terms of health, for example, in terms of people questioning what goes behind the food that's put on the table, right? I went somewhere for lunch today. I couldn't eat the sandwich because I just saw the sandwich and I was like, dude, who's gonna eat the sandwich? Because it had like tons of mayonnaise, tons of so that
doesn't sit with you.
Yeah. So
and eventually with everyone.
I think everyone will start questioning at some point of time.
Yeah.
Like what's going on behind the food.
Yeah.
Like not just the food that you get on Swiggy or Zomato or restaurant, but even in the food that you get within the house. Right? So yeah, how much pesticides, how much herbicide, and all of that behind. Now, again, how much time will it happen for people to get up and start acknowledging this? You don't know. But can there be a COVID kind of moment where a certain herbicide potentially was carcinogenic, right? So can people get up suddenly at that time and say, I don't want to eat this food?
Yeah.
Right? So it can happen. So it's like that. It's
anything could happen.
Anything
you
could
just
happen.
like bet on some of these fundamental truths as per you.
Yeah.
Are there any specific companies that excite you more than the others that you want to like talk about?
I mean, the two biggest investments of ours is Akshay Kalpa. Akshay Kalpa really, essentially, it's organic milk, and the best thing is what they do is not the selling of the milk. Really, what they do in the back end, which is they go to every village, they take a farmer, make him prototype him of sorts. Get him to kind of move the organic practices, get him to, keep eggs, egg hen, for example, or beekeep, etc. And then automatically his income increases manifold, right? And seeing him, a lot of other people can potentially get inspired.
Adopt similar practices.
So that's something that's really, exciting, So like two brothers, for example, makes
similar.
Zero circle in terms of, as said, in terms of alternative plastic. No, they're
too many to talk
about.
No, I think the work being done by the Rainmatter Foundation is very commendable. I have final two questions before we conclude. One of them is, I think, considering that you've achieved, and I will stereotype and glorify, so much success now, it does feel like there's a certain sense of responsibility, right? Like, I'm sure when you were growing up, you looked up to the Infosys founders. When we were growing up, we're looking up to folks like you. What does that responsibility mean to you when it comes to, just shaping young people's minds, people who are driven by the inspiration that I want to someday become like Nithin Kamath? What do you tell them, and what does that mean for you personally in terms of exercising responsibility in a more mindful manner?
I mean, this is, if you look at my social media, you'll probably, at the end of the day, I'm really interacting with all the founders, etc.
Sure.
They're probably looking at my social media feeds.
Yeah.
And everything that on social media, the way I behave, the way, I don't really engage with anyone, and etc. It's a way of showing people that, you can lead a business and be on social media at the same time. Yeah. And
do you feel a certain sense of responsibility?
Absolutely. I mean,
what does that mean?
I mean, the fact that, like your stories, for example, I've been going to those 3-4 of their, I think the last
annual
4
events.
annual events. And so many founders, because I'm either in the house or in the office, right? And so I don't really get to see every day all these people
In person.
in person.
Yeah.
And I feel extremely conscious about all these people who are following me or etc. So absolutely sense of responsibility, and that's why I question the right kind of things on social media, like saying things like money at what cost, growth at what cost, etc. As in, these are things that I guess everyone who's starting up would appreciate too. So,
To know upfront as opposed to later.
Yeah.
Got it. So it reflects in your online persona, and so that we
Yeah.
can mindfully learn from you.
hopefully, so
Yeah, I know this podcast is an attempt to do the
Right.
same, where
Right.
hopefully we can grasp most of your learnings, and in some shape or form, even if a couple of people learn from it and apply it in some use case of their life,
Right.
it would have been an hour well spent, right?
Sure.
So that's the hope. I think I had two thoughts in my mind. One is this maybe macro prediction, because you're
Right.
so good at that, but maybe I'll go with the other one, which is, it feels like you've reached this point where there's a holistic sense for health, there's wealth, there's capitalistic success, and you've built an institution. If you had to just condense things that core values to life, or how you got here, as a summary of all that you've achieved, I think that would be a great point to end with, because it just feels like a fulfilled holistic life. If I had to replicate in any manner to even 1%,
Right.
what should I do?
I mean, do what you're good at.
Okay.
I mean, find something that you're good at and keep doing it for reasons outside money. Like you said, you're doing the podcast, and money has never been a reason, and that means you love doing the podcast, so you continue doing this, and be good to people, and hopefully get lucky at some time, so
Got it.
at some point of time, as in I guess, I mean, sounds cliched, but I think that's how life is, as in of course it's a given that you have to be smart about things in life, as in you need to be nimble on your feet. You cannot you cannot become big and get complacent, right? As in so all of those things are given.
Yeah, so
that's
conventional wisdom stands
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
but
but-
the add-on is
Yeah.
find something you're good at, be good to people,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
wait long enough until you get lucky.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to end the conversation. I think this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Nithin, for your time. I think I have thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope you had a good time at the show.
No, I did. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank
Bye.
you so much. A pleasure.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.